Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I thought it would be a good idea to talk about why you may want to consider canning meat and how you can use it. And also I wanted to approach this subject because some of you may have seen, by the time this video comes out, it'll probably been about a month, but I had posted in the community section about canning salmon because Patrick went on a fishing trip down in California and brought back a whole bunch of salmon, and I had enough to fill up 14 quart jars, which totally filled up my All-American canner. And so somebody had asked, why would I can so much in such a large size? Because, you know, even though there's only two of us, that is quite a bit of fish in one quart jar to work through. Well, there's a couple of reasons for that, and one is we run our canner off of propane. I always do all my canning outside on a propane cooker, and that way it's easy. I don't have to worry about it being inside. It keeps the smell outside, especially when you're talking about fish. But also because I'm using the propane, I want to get as much out of that run as I can. I don't want to do just pint jars. I want to do quart jars, so I've got as much in there. And I was able to do all of that meat in one canning, and then there was enough left over for us to have dinner that night. So I didn't have to run that, because when you're talking fish especially, because it needs to run for 110 minutes, that is when it's once it actually gets up to pressure and you actually start the timer. So the canner itself, or the propane, is actually running for at least 2 hours, because it's going to take time to get the heat up, it's going to take time for it to get up to pressure, and so on. And so I want to get as much out of that as I can. So how do I then manage to go through a quart jar with just two people? Well, it's actually pretty simple. And the same things I'm going to talk about with the salmon also apply to your venison or your beef. So right here I have some venison that I can, and then some beef. This one's actually from 2013. I still have a couple of jars left from 2013 when I was canning a whole bunch of roasts from getting them out of our freezer so I can put some more meat in there and getting these canned up. And so anyway, let's start with the salmon. So what I did, I do have a jar, it's a third of the way full, that I had opened up out of this. And the first thing I did with it was I made a sandwich spread. And I'll be putting some pictures here. And so I used my own homemade relish. It was a green tomato relish with a little bit of zucchini. It was a way I could use up the green tomatoes, and I have a video on that if you'd like to see it, as well as a video on making a spread out of steelhead. Steelhead is very similar to salmon, and so it works the same way. So anyway, I had some leftover homemade bread. I made up the salmon spread and then used the homemade mayonnaise. Also have a video on that, so you can find the links to all these videos I'm going to mention in the description box down below. But anyway, so that's what I did the first night. And then the next meal I made was I made some fried rice, some salmon fried rice. So I just got some rice, got some whatever vegetables I had on hand, stir-fried those a little bit, put in my cooked rice, and then added in the salmon. It was already cooked, the salmon, so I was able to put that in last. I didn't have to cook it, it just needed to heat through. And then what I'm going to do with the rest of the jar is I'm going to make a casserole that would be very similar to a tuna noodle casserole, except for I'm using salmon. I actually find I prefer salmon or steelhead for making casseroles like that than I do tuna. You know, probably because it's always fresh caught and it's stuff that we've canned or frozen ourselves. So one of the things I'll be doing is making a mushroom sauce, which would be similar to like a cream of mushroom soup like you'd buy at the store, but instead I make my own, and yes, I have a video on that, using the freeze-dried mushrooms that I get from Mother Earth Products. So I'll be doing that. I'll be making that sauce. I'll cook up some noodles, and then all I got to do is add in whatever vegetables I want to add. I'm going to be putting in some of my home-dried zucchini that we grew this year, and then put the salmon in and some cheese, and then just bake it. Super, super easy dish and very, very tasty. Some other options you can do with your salmon is you can actually put it in soup. It's not something I do very often, but a salmon-based soup, as opposed to like beef or chicken, is quite tasty, especially if you like the flavor. And this salmon, I tell you, is so good. You just cannot find a flavor like this in anything that you're going to buy from the store. Thankfully, we live along the coast, so we don't have to go down to California to get salmon or steelhead. It was just, he went down there to go fishing with his dad and some other family, so it was kind of a win-win. He got to spend time with family and came home with a bunch of fish, so that was really great. Now, the same thing now with venison or beef, your red meats, you can do very, very similar things. So one of the things I like to do, you can make a spread for your sandwiches. One of the things I really like to do is take my homemade barbecue sauce, and I have a video on this as well, and mix that in with the meat, or mix the meat in with the sauce, the barbecue sauce, and then serve it over rice or noodles or even over toast. Really, really good option. You can, of course, add this to soups. You can make a stew out of it. You can also use it in making enchiladas, homemade enchiladas, beef and bean burritos. In fact, the liquid in there, you can use the liquid as a gravy base to make a beef gravy. And then, and I've done that too. I've poured the liquid out, turned it into a beef gravy, and then put the beef in there and used that. So instead of having maybe a barbecue type sauce, it was something a little different in flavor, and serve that over rice or noodles. And another really good option. So basically, anything that you're going to use your cooked meat in, you can use your canned beef or venison or chicken or fish. And so you don't have to use it all in one meal. Oh yeah, another thing I like to use the canned beef for, or venison or whatever it is I have, or elk, is to just put it in a pan with some vegetables and some potatoes and just bake it. I usually call it a beef veggie bake. Just put it in there and in your oven or on your wood stove, and just bake it until everything's done, and add whatever seasonings and herbs and stuff that you want for flavor. And it's a real simple one dish meal. Really, really good stuff. So don't be afraid to can in full quart jars, because you can make this 1 quart jar feed your whole family for a week just by dividing the meat up and using it in various different dishes. Oh yes, I almost forgot. Don't forget your pot pies. These are great for using in pot pies. Now, a lot of the things that I have videos on how to do almost everything that I'm talking about here. In those particular videos, I'm showing how to take a leftover meat, like let's say you cooked up a chicken or a pot roast or something, or you cooked up some fresh fish one night and you cooked up a real big fillet and you couldn't eat it all. Then you can take the leftover and do the same things that you can do with the canned meats. You can take one jar. I mean, one jar can last us, of any kind of meat, can last us for more than a week when I stretch it out and make all kinds of meals out of it. And so, I mean, we've been eating on the 1 jar of salmon for several days now because of the meals, and I still haven't even made the noodle casserole. I plan on doing that tonight, but actually we still have some leftover salmon fried fish, so we'll probably eat that tonight, finish that off, and then tomorrow I'll probably make the casserole. So anyway, just some ideas for you on what you can do with your canned meat. And also the fact that, I mean, consider again, this meat right here from 2013, this white stuff you see at the top, that's just fat. When it was cooking, the fat just melts off, floats to the top, and it actually adds another protective layer on there. And so it's totally safe. It's been taking us a long time to work through, because I canned up so much meat that year, and I keep finding another jar from 2013 just when I think that I finally used up the last of it. And mostly because I was working through a lot of the meat that we had in the freezer first. And so now I'm trying to go back and use up the older canned meat and then go back to the freezer meat. So we do both. But the thing is that also knowing how to can meat, how to be able to put it up. Let's say you have a power outage or your freezer goes bad, you can quickly get busy, start canning up that meat. It's an easy process, and no, this time I don't have any videos on it, but it is really easy. Typically your meats are going to take, most of your meat's going to take 90 minutes of pressure canning time. That doesn't count the venting and all that, for a quart jar, and 75 minutes for a pint jar. For fish, it's 110 minutes no matter what size jar you use. So another good reason why I want to do quart jars, since the time doesn't lower when you go with a smaller size jar. 110 minutes for fish. I don't know why that is, but that's just the way it is. I raw pack it. I put put the raw meat in there. To the salmon, I didn't add any liquid to it because I just packed it in there tight and it made its own liquid. I did add some water to the beef and the venison when I did those. And put your lids on, put it in there, can it up. It's easy. It's actually easier than doing certain other things, even though the time is longer for the fish in particular. But as far as the beef and the chicken and the venison, the canning time is the same as it would be for a non-acidic vegetable. Oh, and I wanted to mention one more thing. Some people ask me about this. I know a lot of people like to can special meals in jars, and I think it's a great idea. I have done that. I've canned my own spaghetti sauce. I've canned soups, and but really the only thing I like to can as far as a ready to go meal in a jar is chili. Everything else I like to keep it simple. Meat in one jar, vegetables in another jar. That way that gives me more options and I don't have to have so many different things in there. Yes, it's nice to be able to pull out a jar of soup or something and just pour it and heat it up, but I can easily throw together a pot of soup using the other home canned things, the bases I have, and then using my various different freeze-dried and dehydrated foods, whether it be my own homegrown foods that I've dehydrated or the freeze-dried things I bought from Mother Earth products, and then I can throw together a soup super duper easy. It's just, I don't need to have more cans of soup or whatever in there. I just like to keep it basic when it comes to that kind of stuff. So that's just my preference. We all have to do what we think's best for us. If you have a thing that your family eats quite a bit of that you know is just going to be really nice, such as chili, you know, for us it's the chili thing. Love having that ready to go. Mostly because beans take a long time to cook anyway. So you just cook up your chili, big old pot, then you can have it ready to go. It's, you know, and it's in smaller batches. That's why I like to do the chili that way. Not so much because we eat a lot of it, because that's just, if I'm going to cook up a bunch of chili or some chili, I want to cook a lot at a time, and instead of just a little bit, because of all the soaking of the beans and how long it takes to cook them, it just makes sense to make a lot. So that's why I do that. But for spaghetti sauce, like I used to can it, instead I just have canned tomatoes, and then I can mix up the sauce however I want it, and it doesn't take that long to do. And I have a couple of different sauce recipes out there if you're interested. I have one just on pizza sauce and one on a basic Italian sauce that I put out, forgetting I already had the pizza sauce one. They're very similar, but there are things that I do a little bit differently if I'm making it for pizza than if I'm making it for spaghetti or raviolis or lasagna. So anyway, you can check those videos out. Again, they will all be linked down below. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and this gives you some ideas. And if you haven't started canning meat yet, I hope this encourages you to consider doing that. Again, it's easy once you get over your fear of canning. Meat is one of the easiest things to do, and you'll be so glad that you have it. And yes, as long as your jar stays sealed, it will last for many, many years in your food storage. Okay, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.